Customer service, done right, can be your company's single biggest competitive advantage. Welcome to the Customer Service Revolution. Join customer service authority and best-selling author John DiJulius as he interviews leaders who are revolutionizing their industries. This is more than a podcast, though. It's a movement. The Customer Service Revolution is a radical overthrow of conventional business mentality designed to transform what customers and employees experience. If you are a revolutionary customer service leader who's ready to stop competing on price and obsessed with building a brand that people cannot live without, this podcast is for you. Hello, revolutionaries. Welcome back to another episode of the Customer Service Revolution. Today, we are diving into the blueprint, the actual operating system behind the world's most admired customer and employee experience brand. If you've ever wondered how companies like Chick-Fil-A, Starbucks, Nestle, and world-class hospitals, banks, manufacturers, and luxury resorts build cultures that customers never want to leave, this is the episode you've been waiting for. Because today, we're breaking down the 10 Commandments. That's the methodology created by John DiJulius. The 10 Commandments have become the gold standard for designing, implementing, and sustaining world-class customer and employee experiences. It's the same framework our consulting team brings into boardrooms and frontline training rooms all over the world. We're talking about revolutionizing your customer journey, eliminating service defects, building a zero-risk organization, creating a signature experience, attracting and keeping top talent, onboarding them powerfully, building leaders who humanize the workplace. This is the full playbook, and nobody explains it better than the founder and chief revolution officer himself, John DiJulius. Welcome back, John.
Hello. How are you?
Fantastic. How are you today?
Good. Healing from my shoulder surgery.
That's a tough one.
I thought I was Superman, that the rules didn't apply to me. After the first week, I went and saw the doctor and told him I was going to be a poster child for how quickly I repaired. Now, mind you, this is the second one. I've had fifth shoulder surgery, but second shoulder replacement. I had my left one done 2 years ago and had my right one done. So I was so excited the first week after because I was like, no pain. But then it wore off. I don't know if I did something or if the nerve block lasted longer than it should, and I was in excruciating pain and had to start taking the Percocets and everything, and that wasn't even working. So I had to go in and they gave me a shot, which has decreased the pain. But something I realized, like I haven't done anything in several days, didn't get out of bed or move much. And so I went in yesterday. Everyone I came in contact with had a horrible odor. And I was like, Jesus, like what is going on? And then I finally realized by the afternoon when I was by myself that the odor was still around. And I hadn't taken a shower in a couple of days. I'm like, oh my God. And I don't know. Usually if there's 365 days a year, I got to take a shower. More than 360 of them. And probably one of the things that gets me to take a shower is working out. I try to work out every day. And so I realized I hadn't worked out and just been, miserable. I was like, so I went and took a shower, but I was like, I see why old people, get like that. Like I'm looking at my shower right now thinking, I wonder if I can convert this to a closet and just, fill up clothes. So yeah, it was pretty bad.
You would definitely be living alone.
Yeah, that's the truth. So, all right, that's my recap.
Yeah. Have you gotten to the point where you're like, what day is it?
I'm always at that point.
Really?
More so when I'm traveling and, just going, I forget what day it is. But no, I'm better today.
Good.
Let's
So does that
talk
mean you're ready
10
to talk about the
Commandments.
10 Commandments?
I am.
Yay. All right. Well, take us back to the beginning. What problem were you trying to solve when you created the 10 Commandment methodology?
So when we opened the salons back in 1993, we wanted to be the best at customer experience. It may just because we knew we couldn't outspend, advertise, build our competitors in the 90s in Cleveland at least. Customer service wasn't known, I think, in any industry, but especially the salon and spa. So we thought that would be our differentiator, and it didn't cost much to be nice and provide a great experience. And as I always said, even back then, we said we want to be the best experience in our guest day. And that's not comparable to other salon experiences, because if you're a client and you come into a salon today, you're not going across the street, down the street to their nearest competitor to compare. So we wanted any errands, experiences they had before or after to pale in comparison. That might be a doctor's office, that might be shopping, that might be meeting a friend for lunch. So that became our obsession. It was easier when we were really small and 50% of the staff was me and my wife. And we had, the right intentions, and we had that obsession. But as we started growing, knocking down walls, opening up new locations, our customer experience went backwards. And it got really frustrating to me why, we couldn't be better at customer experience. And so I started reading every book. The internet wasn't what it was today, so you couldn't watch as many presentations, or hardly any, unless you physically went to a conference. It's unbelievable, what you have at your disposal today. But I'd go to conferences, and those conferences weren't customer experience focused. They may have someone that briefly mentioned the customer experience. But that made me even more frustrated, and this is probably how I fell into, the DiJulius Group and speaking and consulting, because every book I read, every speaker I'd ever heard on customer service, I don't even know if customer experience was a used term back then. They'd always tell you the warm and fuzzy story about how the Nordstrom clerk, when you were trying on a pair of shoes and she didn't have it in your size, would run down to Dillard's or Macy's, buy it from them, come back, sell it to you. And that's a great story, but they never told the how. Like, all right, how'd you get her to do that? Did that customer get lucky because they got that Nordstrom associate today? But if they came back tomorrow and got a different associate, or her general manager wasn't working, would you get the same result? Or you went to another Nordstrom location. So, I was more sick of these stories of the above and beyonds or the great customer service, but none of them told you how. So that's when I, just started studying great customer service companies. I was probably at getting to a point where I was able to experience them myself, going to nicer hotels, going to nicer restaurants, and then just became a sponge. And then through the studying, and then early on, as the speaking business took off, working with these companies, and right out of the gate, we were lucky. We started getting hired by, and no one bad hires us, but we got hired by the Chick-Fil-A, Starbucks, Ritz-Carltons, Cameron Mitchell's restaurant, go on and on. And I know I was learning more than I was teaching, but I had never seen anyone codify it. And I didn't invent the methodology. I just put it together, that every company I've ever studied, was a customer client of, or worked with, this is what they all had in common. And that's where the 10 commandment methodology came from. And the interesting thing is, what's the secret, came out in 2008, which is my second book, which is all on the 10 commandments. And there weren't 7 before that, and there's not an 11th. Now, things changed. The internet came, social media came, now AI is coming. That doesn't add a commandment. Those are tools within the commandment that you can execute. So the 10 commandments are the 10 commandments. They don't change. They don't, you don't get an 11th. So, and then the order is really critical as well. Of how you build it. So that became our methodology, and people jumped at it because there was a lack of that, or there was none prior to that. And it's really cool. So when we were working with Starbucks, I remember you came with me on some of our trips to Starbucks headquarters in Seattle. And I remember walking into one of their rooms and they blew up our 10 commandments as a poster. And that was like so cool. It was like, but it was also, why haven't we done that? Right? Like, and then we took it from there, and, our clients get the 10 commandment. Comes real estate in their office. It becomes, something that they're working towards and, working at and always revisiting. So, yeah.
So, in addition to owning a chain of high end salons and spas, you've worked with companies across hospitality, manufacturing, healthcare, financial services, professional services. What universe
Government,
governments?
anti-terrorist.
That was when they got the wrong Secret Service?
Yeah, yeah. I think they misunderstood what my book was about. We did what? Oh, Department of Defense. We've had some crazy law enforcement. Yeah, it's really gone all directions.
So, with all of those, what customer experience challenges do you see over and over again?
Well, I always think the number one is consistency, right? And and then the problem versus the cause. Cause is a whole different direction, but it's a lack of a north star. Removing personal interpretations, that's a huge one. I'm working with a presentation that I have next week for a financial institution, and I'm going through, the discovery and their core values, and, you know, and this is common a lot of times, but their core values, I'm like, there's nothing in there that says anything about the customer. And they say, well, respect, that goes for both. And I'm like, that's not, and so, but even if you have, be customer centric or whatever go above and beyond, or, customer focused, or whatever the terminology is, the biggest problem with that is they don't spell it out and what it means. And so regardless of whatever you're telling, if you tell 100 employees to be customer centric, go above and beyond, deliver genuine hospitality, and you don't define that with tactical, clear things that you have to do in the interaction, well, then you get 100 personal interpretations. One person could think a quarter of a smile and a head nod is genuine hospitality, and another person might think jumping in the customer's arms and hugging them is genuine hospitality. What do you spell it out and make it, trainable, observable, measurable, and actionable, and that you could actually watch, listen, read an email and say, Denise, you did that, or you didn't.
So, I can imagine that's one reason that having this framework is so important. What other reasons are there for having a formal documented system? Why does it matter so much today?
Well, so another thing that I'm sure still happens. We were guilty of it, um, you know, 30 years ago when we were starting off. Is it was flavor of the month, program of the year, management by bestseller, and what that meant was, were you hired in '96?
Mhm.
Yeah. So, whatever book we were reading in '96 that we gave to the staff or we gave to new employees, and it might have been Raving Fans or Fish or whatever it was,
Customer.
the loyal customer. Yeah. And, then the next year, I'd be on to some other book that I liked, in the Nordstrom Way. And so new employees would get that. And then the next year. And so we didn't have one North Star. Everyone wasn't attaching to one methodology, one book, one terminology. And so you would call it something else and someone else would call it something else. And there just wasn't, it's the old example. If you've ever been in a workshop where the person up front says, everyone close your eyes and point north. And then you open your eyes and everyone's pointing in a different direction. That's, we got to have everyone to know what our north is from a customer experience. So when you attach yourself to one methodology, now everyone is being trained, retrained, new employees are coming on board, training what the existing employees have been trained. And so your terminology, what you call your customer, what you call your team member, your secret service for, all those zero risk, those mean something to someone. And so, it's just your North Star, and it holds you accountable. It gives you what you have to visit, revisit, and improve on.
Let's get into them.
Okay.
The first commandment, igniting the customer experience revolution. You always say every company is either part of a customer service revolution or a customer service crisis. How does an organization know which one they're in?
To me, it really comes down to, I guess it depends on what you want to be. You want to be good at customer service? Do you want to be the most obsessed customer obsessed company in the world? And then that means something. And then you measure. So if you want to be the most customer obsessed company in your industry or in the world, whatever that looks like, okay isn't good enough. Good isn't good enough. Allowing an employee who's just getting by, going through the motions, doing that. And so, but that's a big commitment. Now, the return on experience, return on investment is irrefutable. But there's so many things that's needed, from executive buy-in. That's why, I love to talk about, and I have videos that I show of Walt Disney talking, Steve Jobs, Jeff Bezos, Richard Branson, Howard Schultz, Tony Hsieh. I'm missing a few. And you could never read an interview, watch a video on any topic where they don't bring it back to how it affects the customer. The customer, the business is truly, centered around the customer, and every decision they make is in the best interest of the customer. And that's not just, and so that's where, the igniting the customer experience revolution, step one comes from, because that's drawing a line in the sand and saying we are really going after this. And that's transformational. It changes the way the company is and the way the employees start thinking, and how we hire and going forward in our policies and all those things.
Part of that first commandment is day in the life of a customer. Why is that such a powerful starting point for their transformation?
So I mean, it's so important. Most employees, customer-facing employees, are not the customer. The 20-year-old parking cars valet at the Ritz-Carlton's never stayed at the Ritz-Carlton. Our hairdressers are, mostly single females in their mid to upper 20s. Our average guest is a 42 to 58-year-old professional female. Our consultants, most of them have never worked in corporate America, have never been a CEO at a company, a public company. They're not their customer. And you can go just in every business, and that's true. Demographically, age, quality of life. But it doesn't mean we change who we hire. We got to get them to think about what that customer is going through, why they need us in two ways: the expertise that we provide and the impact that will have on the success of what they're trying to accomplish with their customer or in their day, and then the presence that they're not, the human interactions rare and not great, and that we can be present and make them feel seen and heard and acknowledge them, whether it's a 90-second or hour interaction. That's just so important. But you have to understand, why is this, 50-year-old woman overreacting to something that I think is so simple? Well, if you understood, her situation, why she needed it, why it was so important to her, you maybe not looking like it's, you might think that she's underreacting. And if it was me in that situation, I'd really be mad. So it's just so important in that regard. Something I was thinking about the other day when we put on the Customer Service Revolution conference, we had, if you remember, 5 key customers, the attendees. We had sponsors. We separated the CEOs of our attendees as a customer themselves, our speakers, and I think our 5th was our concierge that worked for us. But those were our 5. And I just shared last week, and we get these all the time. Mark, now I'm gonna forget his name.
Sharon Buck?
He's Scherenbach, yeah, amazing speaker, one of the highest speakers we've ever had. Sent an email saying, "I'd love to work with you guys again. You guys are known." I forget what he said, but it was just so nice about the experience we provided the speaker, and every speaker has died to work with us again. And after and all our speakers that we got, after our first one, the first one was the ones I knew, and then I didn't know it, came from referrals of other speakers saying, you have to speak at this. Well, if you think about that, why did we do such a good job with the speaker experience? Things that no other conference ever thought of, because
Because
I'm a speaker.
yeah.
Yeah. So I knew all the little nuances and things that I didn't and let them, if they want to use their own laptop, if they want to use their own clicker, if they want to use their own thing, blah blah blah. But all the little, all the, give them a professional photography, give them the video, 3 camera shoot, so they can use that as marketing, and those are all things that, are so nice to have that, most conferences don't give you. And then they had their dedicated concierge that knew them, knew that they like, a special, coffee, drink, or Swedish fish, whatever that may be. So that's really understanding the day in the life of your customer. So you have more empathy and compassion and expertise.
And day in the life of a customer, do you wanna talk about what it gets turned into?
Yeah, it becomes a video, a 2.5 minute, or 2 to 3 minute video, that you show on orientation. We have clients that show it on interview process just to see how people react. It's an emotional roller coaster of what our customer clients, patients have going on today, this week in their life. Some have high five moments that are exciting that we want to, make sure we're focused on them to catch that. Some have struggles. Majority just, it's chaotic. It's just a stressful day that they're trying to, keep their head above water personally and professionally. And so we know that we don't take them treat them as a 10:30, our third appointment, our last appointment of the day before it can be off, the transactional side, and that we, really stay focused on, the present of each and every one.
And listeners, you'll find links to some examples of those within our show notes, as well as a link to previous podcasts on that topic. John, continuing on with igniting the revolution,
Yeah, I love this one.
the customer experience action statement is part of that too. What does a great customer experience action statement look like, and why does that work to align
So
organizations?
every great customer service company has a customer, client, guest experience action statement. It's different from your mission, core values, purpose, and it's a clear call to action of what each and every team member should be intentionally doing every time they interact with another human being. And that's why a lot of times, it's not, let's say, like I'm working with one company, that sandals, that they call their customers guests, but they're calling this the customer experience action statement. So it applies to each other, vendors, right? It's not just for the external customer, but it's that thing that you have to do every time you interact. So you don't want to, changing the world, or, changing their life. You can't probably do that and we want it to be, actionable in the shortest. Someone comes up and says, can you tell me where the restroom is? To the longest type of interaction, each micro experience. So, and that's what every employee should know. I'm okay, as much as I love my mission statements and purpose statements and all that, those aren't actionable. Those are results that happen over time when it's consistently executed. What I want every employee to know is, what is our customer experience action statement, and what does that mean to you, and how do you do that? And that's where the 3 pillars come in. So the action statement is what you have to do. The pillars are how you do it. And so one pillar stands for your expertise, your professionalism. The second pillar stands for how I make you feel. that you're not just a venti soy latte. You're not just my 10:30 haircut. You're not just my, whatever 11 Zoom call. And I throw up on you with my brilliance, but I don't treat you like, so the second pillar is how I make you feel that you're Denise. We've worked with you before. I know something about you, or you're a brand new client and you're going to educate you a little bit more on our process. And then the third pillar is the above and beyond component, the look for the ability to go above and beyond. And all those have to be taught, and low hanging fruit, and what can we do? And that Denise, I wrote down the last time she came to the office, she, liked a certain Keurig with cream, no sugar. And I have that ready for, that's, it doesn't have to be, moving mountains to go above and beyond for someone.
How do you implement that so it becomes actual behaviors?
I mean, so first you got to create it and then it gets launched. Maybe this is more of a thing when we get to the training, because that's, one of our commandments, and it's a big one is, I always say creating the material is the easiest part. It's launching it and getting it to stick on the front of everyone's tongue, and TOMA, top of mind awareness. There's workshops, and then there's a launch, and then there's a certification, which again, more goes in that training and implementation commandment.
So, customer experience action statement is your favorite part of this. My favorite part of this is the never and always tool, because for me, that's so transformative. I think if companies get that right, it can make such a difference in their organization. Why does defining non negotiables lead to consistent, scalable experiences?
Yeah, and you're right. I like this a lot, and and we like starting off with this when we work with companies, or companies doing it on their own. Should start off with this because it's transformational. It's drawing the line in the sand, but it's also low hanging fruit. We call it the customer bill of rights, which is the nevers and always, a short list of 8 to 10 things that would never happen if the situation presents itself. We would never do this. We'd always do it that way, internally, externally. Enterprise wide. They're not stage specific. Stage specific is when we get to the signature experience, where we're talking about when someone calls, when someone walks in, when, the sales process. Those are stage specific. These may or may not happen today. An example is never say no, always focus on what you can do. So today, as a service provider, no one may put you in a position to say no. Okay. Tomorrow, 10 people in a row could put you in a position to say no. And so, so the kind of rules of thumb with it is they're not stage specific. They remove personal interpretation. So you don't want to have something like, we return calls promptly. Right? Promptly could be 2 hours, 2 days, 2 weeks. We have to be specific. And then the third one, and 3 words or less, real short. But yeah, I love these. And that's why we like to start off with this, because you see traction immediately, like immediately, as soon as you roll it out and coach and hold people accountable and think. If you do nothing else, then say, you could come to any of our locations, deal with any employee, and we would never do this and always do this, and you're certain and you're right. That just puts you ahead of everyone else. And that's what reduces employee roulette, department roulette, location roulette.
Listeners, before we continue, I want to take a moment to tell you about something that can transform your organization's customer and employee experience in a measurable, lasting way. If you're listening to John walk through the 10 commandments and thinking, we need this, we need someone on our team who can own this work and lead this transformation, then you need to know about the Customer Experience Executive Academy, better known as the CXEA. This is our master level certification where we train your internal CX champion, your future chief experience officer, on the exact same methodology that we've used with world-class brands like Chick-Fil-A, Starbucks, New Day USA, Nestle, some of the most admired organizations across the globe. Your CXEA attendee will build a return on experience dashboard, map your entire customer journey, create your service defects, nevers always standards, zero risk systems, design your signature experience, produce a full case study proving the ROI from day one to graduation. And they do this all with the help of John himself and our VP of Consulting, Dave Murray. This isn't another training program. This is how you build a leader who will protect your brand, improve retention, and eliminate revenue loss caused by inconsistent experiences. If your organization is ready to level up and you want help implementing the 10 commandments, schedule a call and talk with our team. Go to tdg.click/Claudia. We'll help you decide whether CXEA or consulting is the right step for your organization. All right, let's get back to this, John. Signature experience design. You talk a lot about creating your signature brand experience. And when you talk about that, what separates a merely good company from one that has a memorable signature experience?
Well, we all suffer from sameness, right? I mean, any bank, any law firm, any salon, they all do the same thing. And with the technology is so important, but technology doesn't differentiate you, right? Technology just keeps you pace. And so, how are you truly, I mean, if you just want to do the same, and again, every airline, you know, every app, Delta, American Airlines, they're all the same. I mean, I can't tell the difference. Uber, Lyft, I can't tell the difference. They board you, check you in, you come through the aisles. Everything is the same. So that doesn't make price irrelevant and doesn't make them a brand you can't live without. So the true best in class brands, Apple, Amazon, all those, Nordstrom's, they have a signature experience that you recognize they do. And if any of their competitors, try to do it, that they're just trying to knock it off, and they usually don't do it as well. So I'm going to say this, I'll probably say it every time. This is my favorite. Creating a signature experience. It's journey mapping. It's looking at every touch point your customer comes in contact with you from I can't stress this enough, from the customer's vantage point, not from ours. Ours is, well, it's easy if we ask them every time 10 different ways when we transfer them for their account number, they're this, to, that's not easiest for them. So from the customer's vantage point, and then we break it down into 3 categories: the service defects, what can ruin the experience from the customer's vantage point when they call, when they email us, when they walk in, when they're waiting for a proposal, whatever that touch point is. What are the service defects that we and our industry are guilty of? And then the middle section is what we call non-negotiable standards. That's really where the signature experience starts, because, a lot of those non-negotiable standards are operational. Everyone's doing operational. You check into a hotel, they're going to ask you for your name, reservation, ID, credit card, have you sign the agreement, initial the price, date of departure, and then hand you the keys. Every hotel in the world is going to do that. Got to do it. But operational isn't memorable when it's done. It's only memorable when it's not done. So that's where you want the experiential standards in there too, that you use their name, you beat the greet, you do the 5 E's, and then the above and beyond is their third column, that, CRM system, flags that she's been here before. Oh, welcome back, Miss Thompson. It's great. That, I look at your ID and see that you flew in from Cleveland. Oh, how is Cleveland this time of year? You're a Bonvoy, whatever status, and do you want the points, or would you like this, and that, whatever. It's that the service defects is we can't do. The non-negotiables and the above and beyonds is where the signature experience starts happening.
Okay, and our next commandment, zero risk. You teach companies how to become a zero risk organization. What does zero risk truly mean from the customer's point of view?
So, I like to, all the companies I've said, Apple, Amazon, Nordstrom's, I believe there's zero risk to do business with. I know there's zero risk to do business with as a customer and as a consultant. What zero risk doesn't mean is that they never drop the ball. Of course they drop the ball. They drop the ball a lot less than anyone else. So that's the first step into be zero risk. And it goes back to the signature experience of they know and they've put systems in place to reduce them from dropping the ball. But the second and real part of zero risk is when they do drop the ball, they are empowered to make it right and make you more loyal. And it's the 18-year-old hostess, the 21-year-old sales clerk, 25-year-old account executive, whoever. And they don't have to say, sorry, it's against our policy. That's above my pay grade. I'm going to have to transfer you. All those things. So, knowing where you drop the ball the most, how to put systems in place to reduce it, and how you have service recovery and avoid all those things and really become a zero risk company that you can do business with us and you don't have to fight, argue, get an attorney, all those things that it's not going to be that difficult.
Yeah, recovery systems, I think, are where a lot of companies fall short. What do you have an example of a great service recovery system?
Yeah, I mean, like Nordstrom's or I mean, all the companies I said. So I'll use the one at Amazon. I might have said this on a previous episode. A couple of years ago, many years ago, I bought. I don't know why I did it in August because this is so unlike me, but I bought uh, uh, a digital viewer. A
Like a
digital
digital
screen that
photo
shows
album?
pictures. Yeah, yeah, yeah. So I bought it for, Grandma Joyce and maybe some other people, for the kids. But it was a Christmas present. So I must have been buying one and I just figured buy 3 more and I'll give the 3, away at Christmas. Well, now that's August. Now December, I open it up and got to install it and, give it to her and wrap it with the pictures on it. And it wouldn't turn on. And I'm totally screwed. Like I almost didn't even reach out to Amazon because it's been 4 months. I know, typical warranties are 30 days, but I did just in case. And Amazon was amazing. They said, we'll send you out another one. They didn't say, well, you bought this, 4 months ago. They didn't say, send us it back. And then when we get it and test it, they said, keep it. Maybe you can go to a Radio Shack and maybe it's the plug. Next one will arrive in the next couple of days. And it did. I mean, that's, I could, give you 20 examples of Amazon. That's why I do business with Amazon. And people, maybe not real. Amazon's not the cheapest by far anymore. But man, I love dealing with them because, everything's great. And if it's not, they'll make it great.
That's awesome. Let's get one more in here on the customer experience, above and beyond culture. Companies want more above and beyond moments, but many struggle to actually scale them, especially if you have multiple locations. How do you build a culture where these moments can happen naturally?
Yeah, the above and beyond, it is a culture. It's definitely a culture that it's harder to teach than you think because and you've been, on both ends of this, an employee in previous jobs and as a leader doing the training for our companies and other companies is just telling people go above and beyond. What does that mean? What does above and beyond mean? And so that's where you go back to the signature experience and you're teaching them the most common ways when someone calls in that you should be listening that it will give you above and beyond. If you hear a dog barking in the background, a baby crying, or her saying that, she, mentioned something off the cuff, hear that. You can follow up, use it the next time, send a card, follow up next week and say, how did the surgery go? Or anything like that. Teaching them head on a swivel to pay attention, look for, not just focused on checking them out, checking them in, booking their appointment, but other things. Above and beyond is also the most rewarding to team members. I think it's more rewarding to team members than it is to customers. Customers love it, but team members usually don't have the autonomy to go above and beyond. So you got to train it. You got to celebrate it. You got to remove policy. And even after you do all that, employees still will be fearful because they've all worked somewhere else and someone got fired, in trouble, written up for, not charging someone or giving them a complimentary dessert because they were upset that their steak wasn't prepared the same way and they had to wait and get another one. And what we always say is you'll never get in trouble for something you do. You only get in trouble for something you don't do. That Amazon example is an above and beyond. They didn't have to do that. And I wouldn't have argued that they didn't, after 4 months, and so many people say, "Oh, people are gonna take advantage of you." It's silly, and I doubt it was factored in, but they probably looked up my history and saw that he never complains, never asks for returns, and spends a great deal of money with us. Maybe that's the case, but if it wasn't the case, it's gonna be the case going forward. But above and beyond, culture it is top of mind awareness. It is celebrating every day. Hey, let me tell you about what Denise did for a client yesterday. That then starts permeating in FOMO and becomes a positive peer pressure of that's who we are. Oh, I could have done that. What Denise did, that's happened to me 3 times, but I never thought to do it. And so the biggest restriction we have with our employees is they've worked somewhere else and they've been pre-programmed and suspicious and trained not to let customers take advantage of them, and policy, policy, policy. And that's a hard habit to break. And you're not going to find enough employees that come with that above and beyond mentality. So, but it's amazing. They become day makers. They go home and they brag to their family and spouses that they were allowed to do that. And it just really gives them a fulfillment in their job.
Yeah, I think with above and beyond, that's where storytelling becomes so important too.
Everything. Yeah. And we talked about that in a previous episode. I think the answer is yes. What's the question? And how to advertise and keep it top of mind that, that's who we are. Do it. Make things happen. The bigger, the better.
All right, listeners, we still have more to go. We have the employee experience part of it and training and implementation that we want to talk about too. We're going to save that for next week. So thank you for listening, and join us next week when we finish talking about the 10 Commandment methodology. Thanks, John.
Thank you. Thanks, revolutionaries.